My name's Vanessa. I'm 34. I was married to Gregory for 7 years, but I always felt like I didn't belong in his family. Last summer, at their big family barbecue, I thought maybe things would finally change. But Gregory's sister, Amanda, made sure they didn't. I was telling everyone about a new project in my graphic design work when Amanda smirked and said, "If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." Everyone laughed, even Gregory. I didn't laugh. I just lifted my hot dog, looked her in the eye and said, "Challenge accepted." That night I moved out. I stopped talking to them. I disappeared. Gregory and I met in our last year of college. I worked at a coffee shop while studying design. He was studying business, with his parents paying for everything. We started talking one night at the shop, and soon we were always together. By the time we graduated, he proposed with a ring worth more than my student debt. When we got married, I thought I'd also be joining his family. They were rich, well-connected, and close. His dad, Richard, owned a big marketing firm. His mom, Patricia, ran charity events. Amanda, his sister, worked for their dad. Michael, the younger brother, had an easy job thanks to family connections. My family was nothing like that. My single mom worked 2 jobs. My sister Olivia and I shared a room. We gave homemade gifts and shared food with neighbors on holidays. When I first went to the Caldwell's huge house, it felt like I'd walked into a movie. They were polite but acted like I was. Patricia treated my work like it was just a hobby. Richard explained basic business things to me, like I didn't understand. Amanda corrected how I said wine names or designer brands, always with a fake sweet smile. Gregory told me, "They mean well. Amanda's just helping you fit in," but it didn't feel like help. It felt like poison. Amanda made jokes about Gregory's ex-girlfriends in her maid of honor speech at our wedding. She questioned if our new house was good enough for a Caldwell. When I landed a big client, she suggested it was only because of Gregory's family. Still, I tried. I volunteered for Patricia's events. I sent clients to Richard's business. I remembered everyone's birthdays. I laughed at their jokes, even when they hurt. I dressed like them, talked like them, and swallowed my pride when the talk turned to vacation homes or expensive schools. Then Gregory got a work offer that meant lots of travel. Without asking me, everyone assumed I'd slow down my business to take care of our home. Soon I had only a few clients left. My life became smaller and lonelier. Last spring, I had a miscarriage at 11 weeks. Gregory was away in Chicago. He offered to come home but sounded relieved when I said I'd manage. Patricia sent flowers with a note that said, "Maybe it's for the best until you're more settled." Amanda said maybe stress from my little business caused it. Only my sister Olivia came to stay. She brought soup, sat with me and cried with me. That's when I saw the truth. My family gave real love. His family did in single quotes. By the time the summer barbecue came, I was worn down. My work felt lifeless. I barely saw my friends. My marriage felt fake, but I still hoped they'd accept me one day. But Caldwell's summer barbecue was a big deal. Patricia spent weeks planning it. Richard showed off his fancy grills. Guests came to see and be seen. It was where you learned who was in and who wasn't. After 7 years, I was still not in. Next morning, I spent 3 hours making my grandmother's strawberry shortcake, the one dessert they actually liked. Gregory was too busy on calls about his trip to Tokyo on the way there. He rushed me, worried about being fashionably late. "Remember, Dad's showing off his new imported smoker today," he said as we drove. Gregory told me on the way to the barbecue, "Try to act impressed, even if you don't get why Dad's smoker is a big deal." I nodded, holding my strawberry shortcake on my lap. I wore a sundress I'd bought just to fit Patricia's casual elegance dress code, though it already felt tight across my shoulders. When we arrived, the Caldwell house was busy. Caterers walked around with appetizers. Richard stood proudly on the patio, showing off his new smoker to his friends. Patricia floated between groups, laughing her perfect little laugh. Then Amanda spotted us. She kissed Gregory on the cheek, looked me over and said, "Vanessa, that dress is so cheerful. The kitchen's crowded, but I'm sure you'll find a place for whatever you brought." Before I could say anything, she linked arms with Gregory and walked away, chatting about running into his college roommate. I stood alone, dessert still in my hands. I finally found Patricia in the kitchen, giving strict orders to the catering team. "Oh, Vanessa," she said, "you didn't have to bring anything. We have the patisserie doing desserts." She waved toward the pantry. But how thoughtful. "Just put it there." I placed my shortcake on a shelf already crowded with desserts from other less important guests. As I left, I heard Patricia tell a server to make room for Amanda's tiramisu at the center of the dessert table. The next couple of hours were a blur. Every time I tried talking to someone, Patricia would whisk them away to meet someone important. I offered to help set up the buffet but was told the caterers had a system. When I joined a group talking about movies, I couldn't get a word in. Meanwhile, Michael's wife, Charlotte, who had only been in the family for 2 years, was introduced to everyone with pride. Our Charlotte, the pediatric surgeon, Patricia would say. Amanda included her in family memories she couldn't have even been there for. Even Richard asked her about her work. When lunch came, Gregory finally came back to me after spending the morning networking. "Having fun?" he asked, not waiting for my answer. We got our food and sat down. I was between Gregory's hard of hearing Uncle Frank and an empty chair for Amanda. Across from me, Gregory was already deep in conversation with his father. Amanda finally sat down and instantly took over the table with a story about seeing a celebrity at her gym. Everyone leaned in to listen. When there was a pause, I tried to speak. "I just finished a branding project for that new bakery downtown," I said. "They're having their grand opening next weekend." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "How nice. Is that the place with the tacky neon sign? Asterisk, it's actually vintage inspired," I explained. "The owners wanted if you disappeared tomorrow." Amanda interrupted, sighing dramatically. "No one would even notice. That's how boring this is." The whole table laughed. Patricia hid her smile behind her napkin. Richard laughed loudly. Gregory chuckled and reached for his beer. Even Uncle Frank joined in, though I'm sure he hadn't heard. It felt like ice water had been poured over me. My face burned, my hands froze. 7 years of little insults suddenly became crystal clear. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't give them a scene to talk about later. I just lifted my hot dog like a toast, looked Amanda in the eye and said, "Challenge accepted." The table went quiet for a moment. Amanda's smile faltered. Gregory glanced between us, sensing something had shifted but not knowing what. Then Patricia chirped, "Who's ready for Richard to carve the brisket?" And the moment passed. The rest of the afternoon, I barely spoke. I watched how icily they moved in their world, how Gregory fit right in, only glancing at me with a quick smile now and then. I counted every small insult, every time I was ignored, and I heard a voice in my head louder than ever before. "You deserve better than this." By the time we left, my decision was made. The drive home was silent. Gregory checked his emails and read parts of them out loud. I stared out the window, already thinking about my next steps. When we pulled into the driveway, he finally asked, "Everything okay? You've been quiet since lunch." "Amanda's joke about me disappearing," I said. "Did you think that was funny?" Gregory sighed. "Don't start this again. Amanda was just being Amanda. You know how she gets." Laughed. I said it was a joke. "Vanessa, not everything needs to be analyzed." We got out of the car, ending the conversation. That night, while he slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the barbecue, our marriage, and every time I'd been made to feel small. Asterisk, lying in bed that night, I thought about who I used to be. Back when Gregory and I first met, I was a confident, ambitious designer. I loved my work, my friends, and my life. Somewhere along the way, I started believing the message the Caldwells kept sending me, that I should feel lucky to be with for them, that I had to follow their rules to be accepted, and that my value depended on what they thought of me. At 2 a.m. I quietly got out of bed and went to my home office. I opened my laptop and started planning. I checked our bank accounts, searched for apartments in Seattle where my sister Olivia lived, and looked at transportation options. By sunrise, I had a plan. Gregory left in the morning for golf with his dad, kissing me on the cheek without really looking at me. Soon as he drove off, I started putting my plan into action. I called Jessica, my old college roommate who had stayed my friend through everything. "I need a huge favor," I said. "Name it," she replied. "I'm leaving, Gregory, today. Can you come help me pack?" 2 hours later, she showed up with coffee, boxes, and determination in her eyes. We worked quickly, only packing what I truly needed: clothes, important documents, irreplaceable keepsakes, and my design equipment. "I can store anything that won't fit in your car," Jessica said, wrapping a photo of me and my mom in bubble wrap. While Jessica handled the packing, I took care of the money side. I moved exactly half of our joint savings into my account, net a penny more. I paid my share of the bills that were due. I wrote down all the subscriptions and services I needed to cancel or move to my name. By mid-afternoon, my car held the most important pieces of my life. Jessica hugged me hard before she left. "Call me when you're safe for the night. And Vanessa, I'm proud of you." Alone in the house, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote Gregory a letter. I told him I needed time away to think about our marriage. I explained that I had only taken what was mine and paid the bills I owed. I asked him not to contact me. I didn't say where I was going. I took off my wedding ring and placed it on top of the letter. Beside it, I left a note of Amanda's cruel words written exactly as she'd said them, with the date and place. Before leaving, I allowed myself one last sentimental moment. I picked up our wedding photo from the hallway table. We looked so happy back then. His smile reached his eyes, and I looked full of hope. "Goodbye," I whispered, setting it back down. Then I walked out the door without looking back. Driving away from our neighborhood was both scary and freeing. With every mile, I felt my chest loosen a little more. By the time I crossed the state line, I could finally breathe again that night. I checked into a small hotel using the credit card I'd kept separate all these years. It was simple but clean, nothing like the fancy hotels the Caldwells preferred. I texted Jessica and Olivia to let them know I was safe. Then I turned off my phone. Gregory would be home by now, seeing the empty closet and my letter. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel happy. I just felt nothing, wrapped in the hotel's blankets. I slept deeper than I had in months. The next morning, I turned on my phone for a moment and saw Gregory's messages exactly in the order I expected. Confusion, then irritation, then concern, then anger. Where are you? Call me. This is ridiculous. Come home so we can talk. Your mother is worried. At least tell her you're safe. You're being selfish. I have my Tokyo trip in 3 days. Fine. Take your space. We'll talk when I'm back. Not once did he mention Amanda's joke. Not once did he acknowledge why I left. I sent my mom a quick text saying I was safe but needed privacy. Then I turned my phone off again and opened my laptop to search for a longer-term place in Seattle. I had said yes to the challenge. Now came the hardest part. I had to disappear, not just in person, but from the role I had played as Gregory Caldwell's wife. I wanted to see if Amanda was right, if no one would notice I was gone, or if I could make a life where I mattered on my own. Seattle welcomed me with 3 days of non-stop rain, almost like it was washing away my old life. Olivia found me, a small, furnished apartment in her neighborhood. It was just one room with bay windows and creaky floors. After living in a big house with Gregory, this tiny space should have felt small and closed in, but instead, it felt safe, like a warm cocoon. Olivia apologized for the building not being fancy, but the location was good, and the landlord didn't ask questions. I told her it was perfect. I touched the worn kitchen counter and felt glad it was mine. That first week went by fast. I opened a new bank account. I had my mail sent to Jessica so there would be no direct trail. I bought a phone with a Seattle number. I updated my online design profiles, removing anything connected to Gregory's. Messages kept coming. At first he was angry, then he tried to bargain. Whatever's going on, we can work through it. Just come home, he wrote. I didn't answer. I wasn't being cruel, I was protecting myself. Every time I thought of replying, I remembered all the small moments when my worth had been chipped away. The laughter at that picnic table, and how my voice had slowly disappeared. 2 weeks after I left, Amanda posted on Instagram, "Family is everything. You can't choose who stays and who goes." The comments were full of heart emojis from the Caldwell side. Gregory's mom called my mom, pretending to be concerned but really fishing for details. Michael's wife, Charlotte, texted saying she was there if I wanted to talk. I answered none of them. Jessica sent the rest of my things in plain boxes. I found a therapist who helped people with family and marriage problems. The sessions left me tired, but I slowly felt stronger. One day my therapist said, "What Amanda said at the barbecue wasn't the reason you left. It was just the last straw." She then asked, "Tell me about the first straw." That question unlocked a flood of memories, little jabs disguised as help. My successes made to feel small, my opinions dismissed, and Gregory standing by. Not cruel, but never speaking up for me. By the second month I had 3 steady design clients. The work wasn't very creative, but it paid the bills and gave me back some confidence. One rainy Tuesday, I went into a coffee shop and noticed a beautiful wall mural. The barista told me the owner had hired a local artist for it, and now she was looking for someone to redesign the menus. An hour later, I was meeting Eleanor Marshall, the owner. She had silver streaks in her hair and spoke straight to the point. She waved off my resume and asked to see my personal work, the kind I made just because I loved it. Nervously, I showed her a folder I hadn't touched in years. These were my designs, messy, bold, and truly mine. Eleanor studied them, then looked at me and said, "You've been hiding. These are good, but are they recent?" I admitted. They weren't. She asked why, and I told her a short version of my story, how I had lost my style to fit the Caldwell image. Eleanor listened, then said I could do the menu project, but only if I promised to make one personal piece a week, and bring it to her. She became more than a client. She became my mentor. Through her, I met other local business owners who needed design work. Slowly, my calendar filled with projects that made me excited again. Gregory contacted me less and less. I filed for divorce, and after some resistance, he gave in. 4 months after I left, I peeked at social media. Gregory was at a work event with a woman I didn't know. Amanda posted family photos captioned, "Missing no one." It stung less than I expected. In a way, it felt freeing, proof I was no longer part of their world. 6 months in, I got the final divorce papers. Gregory's note said, "I still don't understand, but I won't fight you anymore." That night, I cut my hair short. The woman in the mirror looked both like me and like someone new, thinner, with lines on her face, but with a clearer gaze than I'd had in years. By month 8, I had enough work to rent a desk in a shared studio for the first time in years. I had colleagues who valued my ideas. As the 1-year mark of my leaving got close, I didn't even think about what the Caldwells were doing. My life was full. My designs were being noticed. I was invited to speak at a creative conference then. Exactly 1 year after Amanda's comment, I got an email from Westwood Creative. They had seen my work and wanted me for a big project. The client was Sheffield Consumer Brands, a company tied to the Caldwells. I called Eleanor and she told me to decide if the project was worth it, no matter who was behind it. The budget was huge, and after 3 days of thinking, I agreed to meet with them. The meeting went well. No one mentioned my past. I took the job and set firm rules for communication. For 3 weeks, everything was fine. Then I learned that Sheffield would unveil my work at a big marketing gala, the kind the Caldwells never missed, and just like that, I knew my past and my present were about to meet face-to-face. Richard thought going to these networking events was very important for keeping the family's business famous. Gregory always went along with him. That week in therapy, Dr. Lewis gave me 3 choices. First, I could say no and maybe hurt my career. Second, I could go and try to avoid the Caldwells, which might be stressful and pointless. Third, I could go and be ready to face them my way. What would you do? I asked her. I'm more interested in what the Vanessa today would do, she said with a little smile, not the Vanessa from a year ago. The question stayed with me as I left. A year ago, I would have either skipped the event or gone as Gregory's nervous shadow, worried about Amanda's sharp comments and Patricia's fake approval. But I wasn't that person anymore. The next morning, I emailed Thomas to say I'd be there. I booked an appointment with a personal stylist Olivia recommended and used part of my Sheffield payment for an outfit that would be both my protection and my statement. When the night of the gala came, I was calmer than I expected. In the hotel mirror, I saw a woman in a deep emerald jumpsuit that stood out among all the black dresses. My short hair now had soft caramel highlights. My new shoes added 3 inches to my height. But the biggest change was in my eyes. No fear, no apology, just calm readiness. The event was held in a beautiful old theater downtown. The lobby glowed with lights and simple flowers. I checked in, took my name badge, and accepted the fancy drink a waiter handed me. Before I'd even finished 2 sips, Thomas was by my side, introducing me to business leaders. I collected their cards and talked about design trends in the market. I spoke with confidence, and people listened seriously instead of brushing me off. 40 minutes later, while chatting with a magazine editor, I felt the room change. I didn't need to look. I knew the Caldwells had arrived. Richard's loud laugh confirmed it. I stayed where I was, finished my point, and then went to the bar for sparkling water. As I waited, I scanned the room. Richard and Patricia were by the entrance, surrounded by people. No sign of Amanda yet. Then I saw Gregory, standing apart, looking thinner and smaller somehow. Our eyes met. His widened in shock. I looked back steadily, neither smiling nor frowning, then turned to thank the bartender. Richard came over while I was looking at the event program. Vanessa, he said. Not warm but not cold. Quite a surprise. Richard, I said, meeting his eyes. I'm the lead designer for Sheffield's organic rebrand. He seemed caught off guard. I hadn't made the connection. Their creative is through Westwood. Yes, I'm working with Thomas's team. The early testing looks very positive. I said professionally. I see your work has changed since you left. Not changed. I smiled slightly. It's gone back to being real. He shifted uncomfortably. Patricia is here. I'm sure she'd want to say hello. Of course, I replied calmly. I went back to the Westwood team. From the corner of my eye, I saw Patricia's face tighten when Richard told her I was there. The Sheffield presentation was in the middle of the evening. As Thomas and I headed to the stage area, Amanda suddenly stepped in front of us. Her face showed both surprise and calculation. Vanessa, no one told me you were part of this project, she said, as if it were my fault. Amanda, I said, evenly, I'm working with Westwood Creative. Thomas, this is Amanda Caldwell, Richard's daughter. Thomas smiled and shook her hand. Miss Caldwell, nice to meet you. Vanessa has been wonderful to work with. You know her work? Amanda's smile grew tighter. Richard thought these networking nights were important for keeping the family's business well known. Gregory had always gone along with him. That week, my therapist gave me 3 choices. I could skip the event, and maybe slow down my career growth. I could go but try to avoid the Caldwells, which would be hard and maybe useless. Or I could go and be ready to meet them on my own terms. What would you do? I asked. Dr. Lewis smiled and said she cared more about what the Vanessa of today would do, not the Vanessa from a year ago. The question stayed in my mind as I left her office. Last year's me would have either skipped the event or gone as Gregory's nervous shadow, afraid of Amanda's mean comments and Patricia's fake approval. But I wasn't that person anymore. The next morning I emailed Thomas to say I would be there. I also booked a meeting with a stylist Olivia recommended and used some of my Sheffield payment to buy an outfit that would make me feel strong and confident. When the gala night came, I felt surprisingly calm. In the hotel mirror I saw a woman, wearing a dark green jumpsuit that looked both classy and unique. My hair had soft caramel highlights, and my one big splurge, the designer shoes, made me stand taller. The biggest change was in my eyes. No fear, no apology, just calm readiness. The event was in a beautiful old theater downtown. The lobby glowed with soft lights and flowers. I checked in, took my name badge, and accepted a special cocktail. Before I could finish my first sip, Thomas was there, introducing me to a group of business leaders. We talked about design trends and customers. I spoke with confidence, and people listened carefully. About 40 minutes in, I felt the air in the room change. I didn't need to turn around to know the Caldwells had arrived. Richard's loud laugh confirmed it. I stayed where I was, finished my conversation, and then went to the bar. As I waited for my drink, I scanned the room. Richard and Patricia stood near the entrance, surrounded by people. Gregory stood apart, looking thinner and smaller somehow. Our eyes met, his face showing shock. I kept my gaze steady, then turned to thank the bartender. Richard came over while I was reading the event program. "Vanessa," he said evenly. "Quite a surprise, Richard," I replied, looking him straight in the eye. I told him I was leading the design for Sheffield's rebrand. He seemed caught off guard by my calm tone. I explained I was working with Thomas's team and that the results were already looking good. He studied me, then said my work had changed since I left. "Not changed," I said with a small smile. "I just went back to my true style." He shifted uncomfortably and mentioned Patricia might want to say hello. I said of course and went back to my team. From the corner of my eye, I saw Richard whisper to Patricia. Her perfect face showed a tiny crack as she searched for me in the crowd. Soon, it was time for our presentation. Thomas and I were walking to the stage when Amanda stepped in front of us. She looked surprised but also calculating. "Vanessa, no one told me you were on this project," she said, as if I had hidden it. I told her I was working with Westwood Creative and introduced her to Thomas. Thomas was polite and said I was great to work with. Amanda's smile tightened. She said we were family, or were. Thomas didn't react much and led me away. He didn't ask about it, which I appreciated. The presentation went smoothly. I spoke about design and customer connection, showed the rebrand ideas, and answered questions. People clapped several times during my talk. From the stage I could see the Caldwells in the front. Patricia stayed neutral. Richard nodded at certain points. Amanda whispered to someone. And Gregory stared at me the whole time. After the talk, people came to ask questions and give compliments. I exchanged business cards and heard about new opportunities. It felt good to know I had earned this on my own. When the crowd finally thinned, Gregory came over alone. "You look well," he said. "Thank you," I replied. He said he didn't know I was in Seattle, and I told him that was on purpose. He said my talk was impressive and that I had always been talented. I corrected him. I still am talented. He said he had thought a lot about what happened, about Amanda's joke and everything. Before that, he admitted he missed me. I didn't feel triumph or revenge, just calm certainty I had made the right choice. I told him I had to join my team for dinner. He asked if we could have coffee the next day after his workshop talk. I agreed to half an hour as professional courtesy. Patricia appeared then, smiling perfectly. "Vanessa, darling, what a delight to see you thriving," she said. Her tone didn't match her words. I wished her well. She said the family missed me and mentioned my strawberry shortcake. The old me would have accepted the fake kindness. The new me reminded her that at the last gathering, my shortcake had been pushed aside for Amanda's tiramisu. Patricia's smile faltered, then returned. She called it a misunderstanding. I reminded her there had been many such misunderstandings over the years and said I was glad I now worked in places where that didn't happen. The dinner bell saved her from replying. I joined my team at a table far from the Caldwells. The night passed without more contact, though I caught Gregory looking at me sometimes. When it ended, I skipped the after-party and went to my hotel. In the quiet of my room, I took off my shoes and looked out over the shining city. The meeting I had half dreaded was over. It hadn't drained me, it had made me stronger. I had faced the Caldwells not as an outsider begging for approval, but as a successful professional. Amanda's old challenge, that no one would notice if I disappeared, had not just pushed me to leave, but to completely remake my life. The funny thing was, when I left their world, I actually became more visible in mine. The morning after the gala was bright and sunny. Sunlight came through my hotel curtains as I got ready for the workshop. I picked a comfortable but professional outfit and drank coffee from room service while I checked my notes. The workshop was in the hotel's conference center. It felt smaller and more relaxed than the fancy gala last night. As I set up my things at the table, I saw Richard talking seriously with Thomas near the refreshment table. It seemed like normal business talk. People slowly arrived, chatting and eating pastries before sitting down. I was going over my slides when Amanda walked in. She looked around the room until she saw me. Then she walked over, holding her coffee tightly. "Good morning," she said in a calm voice. "Thomas speaks very highly of your work." "Thomas is an excellent creative director," I replied. "The whole Westwood team is amazing." She shifted slightly. "I didn't know you were in Seattle. Your presentation last night was impressive." From Amanda, that was almost a big compliment. I thanked her politely. She added, "Father is thinking of bringing the whole Sheffield account in-house after this campaign. He likes the direction you're taking." I understood right away if that happened, my work could disappear or be claimed by their team. I stayed calm. "That's Richard's choice as Sheffield's owner," I said. "But Westwood has clear rules about giving credit for creative work. Thomas makes sure his designers are protected." Her smile tightened a little, but before she could answer, the facilitator told everyone to take their seats. The morning went smoothly with talks about market trends and customer habits. My turn came just before lunch. I noticed Gregory slip in at the back, clearly waiting for my session. I spoke confidently about digital integration, showing how our packaging linked with augmented reality and the online brand. People asked great questions, even Richard. I gave clear answers with set deadlines we had already agreed on. When the session ended, Gregory tried to come over, but someone from Sheffield stopped him with questions. I stepped outside for some air. The hotel's garden was peaceful. I had just sat down when Patricia appeared, looking like she had been waiting for me. "You've always had good timing for escapes," she said, sitting down without asking. "I call it knowing when I need space," I answered. She studied me. "You've changed." "I've gone back to being myself," I said, "the person I was before, trying to fit into places I didn't belong." "Families are complicated," she sighed, "especially old ones like ours. There are traditions and ways things have always been done. I know I spent 7 years trying to follow them. Maybe we weren't as welcoming as we could have been." She admitted the closest she'd ever come to an apology. But disappearing without saying anything was dramatic. I left a letter for Gregory. I made sure all finances were settled. I made a clear choice to remove myself from a harmful situation. "That's not dramatic." Gregory was devastated. She said, "Gregory was inconvenienced." I replied softly, "There's a difference. You don't know what this last year has been like for him, or for us." "You're right," I said. "Just like you don't know what the past 7 years were like for me." We sat quietly for a moment before I added, "I'm not here to trade stories of pain. I'm here because I'm good at my job, and my work matters for Sheffield's campaign." Something shifted in her face, not full respect, but a hint of it. "You've always been stubborn," she said. "I prefer determined," I replied. With a small smile as we walked back inside, she asked, "Will you be at the closing dinner tonight?" "Yes, Westwood has a table. The salmon is usually excellent," she said casually. The normal tone threw me off for a second, like she was a mother-in-law again. The afternoon was about putting plans into action. I joined in but kept my distance from the Caldwells. When the workshop ended, Gregory finally reached me. "Still up for coffee?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "There's a place in the lobby." We walked together without talking, the silence feeling strange and familiar at the same time. Once seated, he ordered his Americano, and I got my latte. No need to ask each other. He looked down at his cup. "Seattle suits you," he said. "It does. The creative community is very welcoming," I replied. He traced the edge of his cup. "I've been in therapy since you left." Dad didn't think therapy was needed, but he went anyway. He said it had helped him, and that surprised me. Gregory used to think therapy was just paying someone to tell you what you wanted to hear. I told him I was glad he went. He said therapy made him understand some things about our marriage and his family. Then he looked me in the eyes and said he didn't see what was happening to me because it was easier not to. I didn't expect him to admit that. For a moment I saw the man I had fallen in love with, thoughtful, willing to grow, and able to look at himself honestly. I thanked him for saying it. He kept going. He said he didn't stand up for me, not against Amanda, not against his mum, not even against his own idea that I should just fit in with whatever his family needed. I agreed. He told me he had thought a lot about that barbecue, about Amanda's joke, and how everyone laughed, including him. He said he now understood that when I said challenge accepted, I was declaring my independence from all of them. His voice sounded like it carried both admiration and regret. We talked for almost an hour. Gregory told me the family had changed since I left. Amanda now criticized his new girlfriend. Patricia became more controlling over family events. And Richard was upset when Gregory turned down a promotion that meant moving away. He said it was like someone had adjusted the contrast on a photo he had been looking at his whole life. When we finished our coffee, we knew it was time to go. Gregory asked if there was any chance for us. I looked at him, remembering when he was the center of my world. I still felt care for him, even a small spark of old attraction, but things had changed. I told him we both needed to become different people, and I liked the person I was becoming now. He accepted that and said I was stronger than he had ever realized. I told him we both were. He just needed different circumstances to find it. We hugged briefly, the kind of hug that felt like true closure. Watching him walk away, I wished him well in creating a life that was truly his, not just part of the Caldwell legacy. Later, I was packing up my portfolio in the conference room when Amanda walked in. She seemed like she had been waiting for me. She asked if I took the project because it was connected to her family. I told her no. I only found out about the connection after I accepted the job. She studied me and asked why I didn't step away once I knew. I told her I was the right person for the job and that her family's benefit was just a side effect of my work. She pushed again, saying it was strange that exactly 1 year after I left, I showed up working on a project tied to them. I smiled and said life doesn't work out that perfectly. She said she didn't believe in coincidences like that. I asked if she thought I had spent a whole year building a new career in another city just to end up here. That idea gave her too much importance. In my life, I said. That seemed to hit her. She paused and admitted that when she made that joke at the barbecue, she never thought I'd actually leave. I told her it wasn't just a joke, it was how she had treated me for years. Like I didn't matter, and in her family, I didn't. But I had learned there are places where I do matter. For a moment, Amanda looked uncertain. She said Gregory hadn't been the same since I left. I told her he was finding his own way, just like I was. She asked about reconciliation, but I explained we had already made peace with the truth of our marriage and its ending, before leaving. She told me my presentation was genuinely good work. I thanked her sincerely. It was a rare kind of compliment from her. That night at the final dinner, the Caldwells and the Westwood team sat at different tables, which made things easier. Richard spoke politely when introduced to me. Patricia complimented my dress, and Amanda even showed one of my designs. In her presentation with my name on it, I left the event without any dramatic feeling, just quiet satisfaction. I had gotten back my professional identity and my personal freedom. The Caldwells now felt like people from my past, not the center of my present. Amanda's challenge that if I disappeared no one would notice had been answered and surpassed. I had left their world and come back completely changed. 1 month later, I was sitting with Eleanor in our favorite coffee shop, rain tapping gently against the windows. Eleanor poured more coffee into my cup and smiled. So, the Sheffield campaign starts next week, she said. That must feel good after everything it does, I told her. Thomas had called the day before and said stores were already excited. They were even talking about using the rebrand on more products. She asked about the Caldwell connection. I told her it was now just a professional relationship. Richard's marketing director had even asked if I might work with them again, but this time with clear contracts and proper channels. I hadn't decided yet. Eleanor said that was quite a change, going from an unwanted family member to someone they respected as a professional. I agreed. Life can have strange ways of balancing things. The Sheffield project had changed my career. It brought me new clients and gave me a portfolio that finally showed my real style instead of watered-down ideas. Most importantly, I now worked with clear boundaries and full confidence in my worth. The divorce was final, and it went smoother than I expected. Gregory was fair with the money, and even generous in some ways. We didn't speak directly, but our lawyers worked well together. My only personal request was to keep my original engagement ring, the one from my grandmother, instead of the fancy Caldwell diamond Gregory later gave me. He agreed without a fight. I still met with Dr. Lewis, my therapist, but only every other week now. Our talks had shifted from dealing with pain to building healthier habits and better self-understanding. Dr. Lewis once told me, healing doesn't mean going back to how you were before. It means becoming someone new, someone shaped by the experience, but not trapped by it. That stuck with me. I wasn't trying to be the old me before Gregory. I was taking the passion and confidence from that younger me and mixing it with the wisdom and boundaries I had learned the hard way. Jessica came to visit for a long weekend. On a hike, she looked at me and said, "You laugh differently now. More from your belly, less from your throat." I teased her that it was oddly specific. She said before, I laughed like I needed permission. Now I laughed like I gave myself permission. She was right. Little by little, things had changed. I spoke up in meetings without practicing my words first. I started dating casually, enjoying it without rushing into anything serious. I joined a community garden and found unexpected joy in growing real living things. One surprise was becoming friends with Charlotte, Michael's wife. She first emailed me about design work for a children's clinic she volunteered at. But when we met for coffee, we connected over shared experiences as outsiders in the Caldwell family. One day, Charlotte told me something that shocked me. Amanda was pregnant and taking parenting classes so she wouldn't repeat old family habits. I was surprised not only by the pregnancy but by her self-awareness. Charlotte said, "People can change when they have the right reason." She thought my leaving had helped open the family's eyes, but I didn't take credit. Their journey was theirs, mine was mine. 6 weeks after the conference, I was at the farmer's market picking tomatoes when I heard a familiar voice. Amanda was at the next stall, looking at cheese. She was clearly pregnant now, her figure softer than usual. We saw each other and she walked over. "I didn't know you shopped here," she said. Every Saturday, I told her, they have the best tomatoes. In the city it felt awkward, but not in a bad way. We made small talk about the market and the weather. Then she got serious. She said she had been thinking about what I said at the conference, about places where you are valued and places where you aren't. She told me preparing for motherhood was teaching her something similar. Everyone had advice about who she just should be and how she should change. It made her think. I told her that context shapes us, but it doesn't have to define us. She nodded and said the parenting class was helping her see patterns she had never questioned because they seemed normal. In her family, I understood what she meant. It was like my own journey. I told her self-awareness is powerful. She agreed. Eleanor poured me more tea and said the Sheffield campaign would launch next week. She asked if it felt good after all the work. I told her it did. Thomas had called to say stores loved it so much they were already talking about adding more products and keeping my name connected to it. I explained that my relationship with Richard's company was now just professional. His marketing director had even asked about working together again, but this time with clear contracts. I wasn't sure yet if I wanted to. Eleanor said it was a big change from being ignored in the family to being wanted as a professional. She was right. The Sheffield project had changed my career. It showed people my true style and brought me new clients. I was now working with clear boundaries and knowing my own worth. My divorce from Gregory went smoothly and he was even generous. In some parts of the settlement, I kept my grandmother's engagement ring, which meant a lot to me. I still saw Dr. Lewis, though now only twice a month. Our talks had moved from pain and healing to learning how to build better relationships and keep discovering myself. Dr. Lewis once told me that healing doesn't mean going back to who you were. It means becoming someone new who carries the lessons without being trapped by them. That stuck with me. Jessica visited and noticed how I laughed differently now, freely, without needing anyone's permission. Little by little I spoke up more in meetings, started dating casually, joined a community garden, and even became friends with Charlotte, Michael's wife. She told me Amanda was pregnant and taking parenting classes so she wouldn't repeat old family mistakes. One day at the farmer's market, I saw Amanda. She looked softer with her pregnancy. She told me she'd been thinking about what I said at the conference about being valued. She said she didn't want her child to feel like they had to disappear to be seen. I told her that was a good start. We didn't become close again, but it was a real, honest moment between us. Walking home, I thought about how far I'd come. Amanda's old comment that no one would notice if I disappeared had pushed me to leave a life where I was invisible and create one where I was truly seen. I'd just bought a small house by the water, paid for with my own money. It wasn't big, but it was mine. As I set it up, I felt proud. Disappearing had actually made me more visible, not just to others, but to myself. That night, I wrote in my journal, sometimes we have to step out of other people's stories to find our own. The best way to answer being unseen isn't to beg for attention, it's to live so fully in your own life that you don't need anyone else's approval. The woman I am now could never go back. This wasn't a sad ending, it was a victory.